I'm really not a football fan. I never speak about football in the Bima, but I'm going to talk about football again to start my sermon this morning. Tomorrow night, the New York Giants will be playing the Washington Commanders at FedEx Field just outside of D.C. in a high-stakes game that will determine which of the two teams will continue on to the playoffs. And as I imagine everyone here knows, tomorrow night is also the first night of Hanukkah. So tomorrow night, for the first time in the history of the NFL, a menorah is going to be lit at a football game. The candles will be lit and the blessings will be recited before 80,000 people in the crowd and approximately 18 million people watching on live TV. And that is truly a remarkable thing. Nes gadol yeh po, a great miracle is happening here. But it should actually be somewhat surprising to us that it's Hanukkah, of all holidays, that has broken into the collective American consciousness as the Jewish holiday par excellence. Because the truth of the matter is, Hanukkah is a relatively minor Jewish holiday. It's not mentioned in the Torah. It pales in religious significance to the three pilgrimage festivals of Pesach, Sukkot, and Shavuot. And it's certainly not even close to being on par with Rosh Hashanah or Yom Kippur. In terms of religious significance, Hanukkah is somewhere in the realm of Purim, which is to say, it's not all that important. And yet, at the same time, it would be very strange to see someone waving a lulav or eating matzah on the field at a Giants game, even though Sukkot and Pesach are far more religiously significant than Hanukkah. It makes perfect sense to us that it's Hanukkah and a menorah that were selected by the NFL as the holiday and the symbol to represent Judaism to the world, because although Hanukkah may be a minor religious holiday in the United States, Hanukkah has become a major significant holiday. According to the most recent Pew report on American Judaism, 46% of American Jews fast on Yom Kippur. 62% of American Jews attend at least one Seder on Pesach, but 80% of American Jews own a menorah and light the candles on Hanukkah. And I imagine that the number of Jews who give Hanukkah gifts or eat sufganiyot or spin the dreidel is even higher than 80%. In other words, Hanukkah has officially eclipsed both Passover and Yom Kippur as the most widely observed holiday among American Jews. And why is that? Why do more American Jews celebrate Hanukkah than any other holiday on the Jewish calendar? Well, there are a lot of reasons. First and foremost, it's easy. The primary ritual of Hanukkah, lighting the Hanukkah candles, really only takes a couple of minutes. You don't have to come to shul. You can do it easily from your own home, and you don't need the supervision of a rabbi. Hanukkah really is the ideal holiday for the busy American family. Second, the themes of the Hanukkah story have always resonated very deeply with American Jews. Assimilation, Jewish identity, and freedom. In the words of Dr. Shaya Cohen, professor of Jewish history at Harvard University, the major challenge faced by the Jews who lived in the 2nd century BCE was how to best preserve Jewish identity while simultaneously partaking in the riches of Greek culture. How should Judaism adapt itself to meet the new conditions of the age? How far could Judaism go in absorbing foreign ideas before it became untrue to itself and lost its identity? The Jews of the Hanukkah story were struggling with the very same questions that we American Jews struggle with every day of our lives. Are we citizens of the Western world? Are we Jewish? Or are we both? And what does it mean to be both? How much of our identity is American and how much of it is Jewish? Does integrating aspects of American culture and society into our tradition dilute Judaism or enrich Judaism? And I could go on and on and on with all those kinds of questions, because those are the questions that lie at the heart of the Hanukkah story, and they are the very same questions that we continue to think about and wrestle with and debate in the year 2022. And finally, there is some validity to Hanukkah being a religious holiday celebrated in late December, which has been reframed to compete with the other major religious holidays celebrated in late December. American Jews want to be able to celebrate at this time of year just like everyone else in the country, and Hanukkah provides an outlet through which we can do that. But the truth is, it doesn't matter why Hanukkah is so popular among American Jews. What matters is that it is extremely popular among American Jews, and that is not something that we should downplay or minimize by calling it a minor religious holiday, as so many rabbis are inclined to do in their sermons at this time of year. Rather, we should celebrate the mere fact that Hanukkah exists. Even if it is a minor holiday, it's a holiday that millions of Jews are genuinely excited to celebrate, and that in and of itself is miraculous. In the early 20th century, Rabbi Solomon Schechter, one of the founding figures of the conservative movement in the United States, famously taught that Jewish law should ultimately be determined by what he called Catholic Israel. And when he used the word Catholic, he wasn't referring to the Catholic Church. He simply meant all of Israel, the entirety of the Jewish people. For Schechter, Catholic Israel is the English equivalent of the Hebrew term Klal Yisrael, meaning the collective Jewish people. Solomon Schechter believed that Jewish law should ultimately be determined by the practice of the people, because Jewish law has always been a living, breathing, evolving entity, and it has always evolved to reflect the practice of Jews in the world. For example, when the pandemic began and the Committee of Jewish Law and Standards of the conservative movement had to decide whether or not to make Zooming and live streaming on Shabbat and Chagim halachically permissible, they were operating via Schechter's principle of Catholic Israel, because the truth is, regardless of what the CJLS decided, most synagogues were going to start using Zoom on Shabbat anyway, because if we wanted to survive, we didn't have a choice. And the conservative movement understood that. So, in March of 2020, the conservative movement had two options. They could either render Zooming on Shabbat halachically impermissible and alienate huge swaths of our movement, or they could do what they ultimately did, which was to make a decision based on what they knew the people on the ground were going to do anyway. And that's Catholic Israel, allowing the practice of the people to ultimately drive the direction of Jewish law. And so, in the spirit of Solomon Schechter, I want to make a radical rabbinic suggestion this morning. Let's stop calling Hanukkah a minor Jewish holiday. As the Latin expression goes, vox populi vox Dei, the voice of the people is the voice of God. Or, as the rabbis of the Talmud teach, halacha kerabim, Jewish law or Jewish tradition follows the view of the majority. And if the majority of our people are celebrating Hanukkah and not other holidays so much, that means something. Let's embrace the fact that Hanukkah is more observed than Sukkot or Pesach or even Yom Kippur, because that fact, in a sense, makes Hanukkah the most important of all Jewish holidays. Shabbat Shalom and Hanukkah Sameach. We continue now with Chatzi Kaddish on page 4.